WRHU Radio Hofstra University.
88.7 FM WRHU. I'm Max Sacco as we continue the Alumni of the Week series. This week joined by Spring 2011 graduate Chris Heimall. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Max, pleasure as always to be talking and reconnecting with WRHU.
Always a pleasure to get back and reconnect with our alumni as well. And Chris, we'll dive right in. First question here, pretty easy one, just so we can get to know you a bit more. Take me through what you did at your time at RHU and now what you do as your professional career.
So I did a lot at RHU. Was in the training class first semester freshman year, fall 2007. And then immediately jumped in hosting Gone Country, which at that point in time, for those of you who are current, that was a once every other Wednesday morning from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. show. So it wasn't what it is today, which I'm very happy about it being that now. I also jumped right in doing Hofstra's morning wake-up call and getting involved with the sports department as much as I could have, getting involved with quick sheets for the locker room, getting involved doing engineering, anything and everything possible that I could have. And then slowly worked my way up through doing other things, ended up on the football broadcast team. I was doing sideline and some color for the last year of Hofstra football, 2008, if I remember correctly. And then started doing a lot more with women's basketball and baseball, and then eventually moved up into men's basketball and baseball as well. Not only that, but touched on the other side of things, news, anchored Newsline for a while, did a lot of some things with election night coverages, actually went to Buffalo in 2010 for the governor election. I was at Carl Palladino's headquarters there, and then also helped out with a lot of election night coverage in 2008 and 2010 as well for the midterms. And all doing that while continuing on with Gone Country and with Hofstra's morning wake-up call, and really had a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, I followed the path of sports, but I had so much fun doing the other stuff, doing Hofstra's morning wake-up call with so many different co-hosts. I mean, Sadiq Faruqi, John Lauder, Dennis Foley, Matt Napolitano, Steve Panzarella, so many of us that were involved in that. And it was a lot of fun to do Hofstra's morning wake-up call as often as I did. And then Newsline was great to do as well. And a lot of fun, just learning different ways and different styles of it, of broadcasting. So, and then of course, being a country music guy, being from the South, being able to do Gone Country when we moved from Wednesday mornings to Saturday mornings was a lot of fun. It was great to do. A lot better to do Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 than it was Wednesday from 1 to 3 a.m. So I was very happy that Bruce and John allowed me to switch that over at one point. And then now, I took that education and parlayed it through I was very happy. I got to spend 7 years getting paid to broadcast. It was a lot of fun, especially in New York City. I've since transitioned out of the true play-by-play broadcasting, and I'm now the general manager of the High Point Rockers, a team in the Atlantic League of professional baseball, the first partner league of Major League Baseball, as was announced last week. So pretty excited about that. This was supposed to be our second season. But now we look forward to 2021 as our second year.
So definitely a fun career and a fun journey as well, taking around the world and now into the Atlantic League, where our own Long Island Ducks play as well. Yep. So a fun journey there. But now, Chris, a bit more of a question now to see a bit more about you as well. Mm-hmm. What brought you to Hofstra and then let you make that jump to RHU? Because you hear a lot of people might come to Hofstra and maybe not go to RHU, or they come, later on at their time at Hofstra. What made you make that jump right away and also come to Hofstra?
Well, like I said, I was in the training class first semester freshman year. I came to Hofstra for RHU. That was the reason why I went to Hofstra. I tell people a lot. My diploma says Hofstra University. My education came from WRHU and from Bruce Avery and John Mullen. And the biggest reason why Hofstra what sealed the deal for me was during my admitted students day in 2006, I think it was. Yeah, 2006, maybe. Yeah, fall 2006 was a conversation with the late, great, immortal Ed Ingles. I came to Hofstra for Ed, basically, to be 100% honest. Talking with him in the halls of RHU, I knew what I wanted to do with my collegiate career. I knew what I wanted to do for a profession. I wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster. I still do. I mean, if the Red Sox come calling for a radio job, I'm not saying I would leave High Point, but it'd be very difficult for me to stay. But I told Ed what I wanted to do in that, fall of 2006. And he said, if you bust your tail, if you work hard enough and you come here, you'll get the opportunity to do it. And that sold me. I was basically telling the kid, you're going to be a starter, or you've got a spot on this team. And so I came to Hofstra and I came to RHU for Ed, 100%. And it was the best decision I could have made from a collegiate standpoint. Like I said, the education, the diploma says Hofstra University, and all 4 years were incredible years. And the memories that I have there are not just WRHU. I have just as many fond memories from outside the radio station as I do inside it. But RHU and Ed Ingles were the reason that I went to Hempstead, Long Island for college.
So definitely a fun reason. Reason too, I came with the same reason for RHU to Hofstra. But now you have a big position. You're the general manager of an Atlantic League baseball team. They just partnered with the MLB, and that obviously takes a lot of skill. Mm-hmm. One thing RHU prepares you for is for the professional career. So you might have got the drift from that alone, but what would you say are maybe the 2 or 3 biggest skills RHU prepared you for when you made that jump from college to professionals?
Well, I think the first thing was, I came to RHU wanting to do sports. That was what I wanted to do. And RHU gave me opportunities to do other things, to do news, to do music, to do the morning show. And by doing that, it opened myself up and basically created a mindset in me to not stay narrow, not to put the blinders on and only focus in on sports. And so when I got into the real world and I started broadcasting, I didn't have my blinders on. That's all I was going to do. That's all I was going to learn. I started to learn corporate sales. I started to learn season ticket sales. I started to learn promotions and facility operations. And that has led to different jobs along the way, and has now led to this role here where I do a lot of that. So the mindset that was instilled in me, and it wasn't as if, Bruce or John or Ed or anybody, Mario Murillo, it wasn't as if anybody said, you have to do this, you have to, don't just be in sports. That wasn't the case at all. It was an opportunity that they gave me to whether or not I was going to be the one to take advantage of that opportunity and that mindset. Even as station manager, my senior year, getting involved with the community volunteers for the Irish marathons and the Italian marathons and all these the R&B marathons that we did, that led to community involvement, community relations, which is such a huge part in professional sports. And so that also instilled a mindset of community-driven, athletics, which is a huge part of it too. The other thing I think that was big about it, and I have to give Bruce and John a lot of credit on this, was when I brought up the idea of wanting to be station manager to them, they couldn't be happier for it. We had not had a true sports department person be station manager at that point in time. But it was an opportunity to learn how to be a leader, learn how to, and I don't know if I did a good job. I don't, there are certain things that happened during my tenure as station manager that worked out for the better, the Islanders contract being one of them. But I didn't have as large a role in that to play as some of the other folks on that executive board and as Bruce and John and members of the Hofstra University community did. But it was an opportunity to, as a 21-year-old, to be, I don't want to use the term in charge, but to oversee 200 of my peers, the people my same age, people who, maybe didn't like me from a personal or a professional standpoint, whatever it is, but learning how to deal with that and learning how to think about the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts type thing, where it's thinking about the radio station as opposed to the individuals within the radio station. What's best for RHU? And I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if Bruce will attest to this or not, but in the executive board meeting when we were discussing the Islanders, I was actually against it at that point in time because I thought that the radio station would go the way of sole sports stations and the opportunity to do news and morning show and other things weren't there. And I don't think I would have had that mindset had Bruce and John not, allowed me to pursue the idea of station manager and live in that world and understand that world. So those leadership qualities, whether I have them now or not, whether they were started in that office, in those meetings, because I'm 31 years old. Most general managers are a little bit older. A lot of my staff are only just a couple of years younger than me. Most of my staff is actually older than me. And, to be able to have that kind of ability, approachability, to be able to just work with people from all different walks of life was a big part of it. And Bruce and John and Ed certainly helped. Even folks like Mario, Professor Mario really helped in that sense. So it was good to have those kind of leaders to look up to and to learn from. And I still, there have been moments few and far between now. They've gotten fewer and further between since leaving, but where I did still reach out to Ed or Bruce or John for advice on certain things. So the leadership that they allowed me to have and to help instill in me was huge. And then the biggest thing, and this is the number one thing that I love from RHU, and I bring it to now with the interns and with the staff that I have. Bruce said it to us. I don't know if he said it to me directly, if he said it to me in a small group, or if he said it to all of us at an all-staff meeting at one point or not. But WRHU is the place to make mistakes, the place to fail. And that is something that we don't give people a lot of opportunity to do in the real world, because failure is the key to success. The only way you do something right is by doing it wrong and learning from it, in my opinion. And Bruce and the folks at RHU and John and Ed, they gave us those opportunities. Ed gave us countless of opportunities in the sports department to fail, countless numbers of opportunities. But it was only a failure if we gave up or if we started blaming other people for those failures. There was one instance on a personal level that I won't get into, but there was one instance where there was a personal thing with me that Bruce had to pull me in and have a one-on-one conversation with. And it was an opportunity that it was an instance that probably, if in the real world came about, I wouldn't have been given the opportunity to correct the mistake. And I'm forever grateful to Bruce for that. So those are the three biggest things. I mean, number one is the open-mindedness to not put your blinders on and solely focus on one goal. But then also the leadership and the ability to fail. Those are kind of those are the three biggest things that I certainly took away and have tried to instill. And like I said, I don't know if they were there prior to RHU. I don't know if they're there now, but I know that they at least were starting to see, I was starting to see a little bit of it while at RHU those 4 years.
So definitely a lot of tips and stuff even I follow. And Bruce has brought up that this is a place to fail thing. He still brings that to our down the road. But now, Chris, the big final question. You were station manager, so you've seen obviously from a bird's eye view what the station looks like too. You were a sports department member at one time too. And a lot of people join sports every year. It's one of the biggest departments we have.
Yep.
What would you say is the best piece of advice for somebody who's just joining the sports department or somebody who is still trying to find their footing? Just the best piece of advice you have, they can dive right in and have a big impact right away.
It's weird. I always give two pieces of advice to any intern or any college kid who comes to me about their career. And I've kind of, over the last couple of years, I've started to sum it up like this: be a sponge with wings. And what I mean by that is learn as much as you possibly can. Don't sit in one spot. Don't, absorb as much knowledge as possible, whether it's in sports, whether it's in music, whether it's in news, whatever it is in, go out and learn as much as possible. And then the with wings part is don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to, there are a lot of people who are from the New York tri-state area, and after Hofstra, they graduate, and where do they go? Back to the New York tri-state area. I'm a military brat. I've moved all over the place. I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. But for so many people, they're so scared to leave that comfort area. Don't, because you'll be amazed at the opportunities you have. I'll give you, one of the prime examples, and if he ever sees this, he's not going to let me live it down. So whatever you post is, make sure you block Mike Leslie's ability to actually see this. Mike was a year ahead of me. Mike went to Springfield, Massachusetts, middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, and ended up just busting his tail, was able to, when the Patriots and the Red Sox were at their peak, was able to go to Super Bowls, go to World Series. Then he ended up moving around to a couple of different places. I think he was in North Carolina at one point. And now he's down in Dallas as one of the more premier sports reporters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, covering the Stars, the Rangers, the Cowboys, and the Mavericks. Mike wasn't afraid to move. He wasn't afraid to go around. Casey Vieira is another one. Casey, guy who went to El Paso, Texas, guy who went to Springfield, Massachusetts, guy who went, those people, they're not afraid to move. And they're the ones who end up really doing what they want to do. So be a sponge with wings, learn and absorb as much knowledge as possible, and don't be afraid to go somewhere else. You'll never regret going somewhere. You'll always regret not taking the opportunity.
I think that's a brand new piece of advice we have yet to have. And I think it's just the best note to end on as well. Once again, everyone, our alum of the week, Christian Heimall. Chris, thank you very much again for joining us.
My pleasure, Max.